Hey everybody, it's Kyle here again with 80 Echo 3 Gunsmithing, and in this video we are going to look at scope mounting options for Lee-Enfield sporters. This is a common question I get because Lee-Enfield sporters are very affordable. You can get a decent one for $200, $225, and 303 British is still quite adequate for most North American game. And most hunting is done with scopes, so people are naturally looking at taking this affordable rifle and putting a scope on it to take it hunting. The first option I'm going to look at, and we're going to look at three options today, and the first one is this model here by ATI. And I bought this one probably 8 years ago, and when I first got my Lee-Enfield Sporter, and it's very economical. It runs for about $60, and it's relatively easy to install. It's not the easiest of the three options we're going to look at today to install, but you don't need to drill or tap or anything. You need to remove the rear sight screw, and then this drops in here, and then you replace the rear sight screw, and then you use the Allen key that they provide you with to tighten up the two screws that are inside this block here, which then apply pressure on various angles on the inside of the receiver bridge to theoretically hold the scope rail in place. And I say theoretically because in practice they slip. They give you a bottle of Loctite to put on these screws, but eventually they back off and they slip. And then when that happens, your scope rail does the teeter-totter, and then you wonder why you can't hit anything. So yes, it's economical. No, you don't need to drill and tap. As far as I'm concerned, this is $60 that you can spend on a better option. The second one we're going to look at is this one here, which is the Lee-Enfield number 4 that was made by Adley Precision in Midland, Ontario. And for the number 4 and number 5 models, you do not need to drill and tap. For the number 1 model, you will need to drill and tap. And that's an important distinction. I know Jerry. I shot with him at the gun club in Penetang, and kudos to him for coming up with this idea because it's well done. It's very well done. It's well designed and it's well made. It's a solid piece of aluminium there, and it uses, again, the rear sight screw, but it also uses in the number 4 model the screw on the left side of the receiver. You take that screw out and then you replace it with the screw that Jerry provides you with, and you get a scope mount that does not move. It's rock solid. It doesn't slip off. It doesn't back off. You won't have any problems with this thing moving. The only thing I don't like about this, and it's not really Jerry's fault, it's kind of the market's fault, is how high it sits off the receiver. And Jerry provides you also with an aperture rear sight that fits on the back of this thing, so you can co-witness your iron sights with your scope, and because that's what the market wants. And the reality is, unless you're kicking down doors and shooting bad guys, you don't need to co-witness your sights. The fact is, optics these days don't break. They generally don't fail. And if it does fail in some way, shape, or form, you're not going to know until you pull the trigger anyway. So this whole idea that, I can fall back on my iron sights and save my hunt, no you won't. You're going to pull the trigger, it's going to go bang. You're either not going to hit it where you wanted to hit it, or you're not going to hit it at all, and then whatever you're shooting at is gone. What it does is it raises the scope level, which forces you to raise your head off the comb of the stock in order to get a proper sight picture. And even with this Monte Carlo stock, I still found that I really had to pick up my head. So if you're putting that on a stock with the original wooden stock, then you might want to think about putting a cheek riser on there as well, because the comb of the stock will be far too low for you to get a proper sight picture. The final option we're going to look at is the good old number 32 scope bracket. and I've already done a couple videos on these, so I'm not gonna beat that horse. Safe to say that this is, in my opinion, the best option out there. It is the most secure, and at the same time, it also brings the scope the closest to the receiver bridge. When the engineers at the Royal Small Arms Factory in Lee-Enfield designed this system, they did so with the understanding that you were using your scope or you were using your iron sights, one or the other. You weren't going to use both. And for that reason, when the scope is installed, they would grind off the peep sight, the aperture, the peep sight, the battle sight on the rifle. They would grind that off. And then that way they could get the scope to sit closer to the receiver, and then you could get a proper sight picture. If you're installing this on a rifle with one of these ATI stocks, which by the way are fantastic, these ATI synthetic stocks, I find are great. I really like them, the Monte Carlo. Then there's nothing else you need to do except install the scope. If you are installing it on a sporter with the original wooden stock on it, you might want to think about putting a cheek riser on, because again, it's going to raise your face off the comb of the stock, and you might find it too low. The final thing I'm going to say about this number 32 scope is I have read all over the internet, forums and everything, about how this will not work. In bold caps I've seen, this will not work with a 1-inch tube. And guess what, folks? Oh, it fits. So whatever you might have read on the internet doesn't matter, because I'm telling you right now, there it is. It fits. The only thing you might need to do is you might need to do a little bit of minor fitting on the rear scope ring. And I had to do that on the last one. The last number 32 scope mod I did required a little bit of grinding in here, because this radius was a little too tight. So I touched up a little bit on this side and a little bit on that side, and then the scope dropped right in and it was fine. And I tested it with a 1-inch tube as well, and guess what? It was fine. So the people on the internet who are telling other people that the number 32 scope bracket made by Red Star Mountain does not work with a 1-inch tube can go suck eggs, because I'm telling you for a fact it does, and now you've seen it. So those are the couple different options for mounting Lee-Enfield scopes. My opinion, this is the best one. It's the most time consuming, it's the most costly, but at the end of the day, you will get the best results out of this one here.